Hey, good evening, Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope, as well as our other streaming channels. Uh, Tonight we just gonna me and Dwayne, my uh confidant here. We're gonna discuss. Hey, Matt Nagy, man, great to see you, bro. I haven't seen you in a
Man, where
minute.
you been,
He in
man?
the chat. He in the chat, Dwayne. But tonight we're gonna discuss the Cowboys
Yeah,
draft.
but I want to hear from Matt Nagy on that Justin Fields real quick.
Yeah, how you feel about the Justin Fields? We'll go right to you, Matt Nagy.
We're gonna go right to you, sir.
Wow,
It's
I'm
good to
glad you
see
could
you,
join
man.
us.
Glad you could be back with us. We miss you, man.
So, Dwayne,
Yes, sir.
topic of discussion. Doing a lot of work.
You
Yeah,
did
you
get
got
your
your
quarterback.
QB1. Got
You
your
got a
QB1.
good QB1. How
Yeah,
long
Andy
before?
Andy Dalton's your QB1, right?
How long before he take that title from the Red Rifle?
Matt Nagy, we probably gonna do our whole division show. I mean our whole we knowing Dwayne how Dwayne want to schedule it. We'll probably do like two divisions a day the next couple of Saturdays because we don't want to do the whole league. We basically want to do the draft like it's basically an off season show. We want to combine free agency with the draft. So
I,
we're gonna do a bunch of research on each team. So we're
I
gonna
think.
do it nice and slowly.
Hey, listen. I'm gonna tell you something, Matt Nagy. I was telling Quentin. I was telling my best friend Craig that one of my sleeper picks this whole draft was Tevin Jenkins. Cannot believe that man went into the second round, and the Bears got great value because he's somebody that you'll put at tackle, and if he stays healthy, he'll be there for a decade.
Yeah, we're gonna discuss the Jabril Cox thing. Me and Dwayne, we got a little bit of age on us, so we remember a guy that got drafted that Jabril Cox could. They may have big plans for Jabril Cox that a lot of Cowboy fans may not be looking at. But Matt Nagy, to be honest with you, when you talk about Tevin Jenkins and Justin Fields, outside of some questionable moves, even with some of the Cowboys picks, and we'll later discuss, I really can't say that this draft was bad for no teams. I know a lot of these commentators don't want to grade the draft, but when you talk about needs, this is where it's a lot of unknowns that me and Dwayne are talk about. So we'll discuss that, and we'll discuss, basically you got to know your scouts. You got to know what your scouts is doing. Somebody from Facebook said Dallas Cowboys. Man, this is a Pittsburgh Steelers site. Yeah, uh-huh. You keep thinking that.
If you say so, if
So
you say
Dwayne,
so, but I do like Najee Harris. I'll give you that. But just
and I like Quincy Roche being the opposite of JJ Watt. I mean, y'all got some things, but you better get that offensive line together.
Just before we get into our Cowboys thing, man, I saw something come across the bottom line on NFL Network that upset me a little bit. You know, another person that I was telling you from the beginning that I would like to have seen the Dallas Cowboys draft, Anthony Weaver. He got drafted yesterday by the Titans, but he had an arrest in April, and the Titans didn't know about it. They just found out about it this morning. So
Wow.
they're trying to investigate what's going on. So the young fella got arrested in April. Team that drafted him, I guess, didn't do their due diligence, and this is what happened. But we're gonna get into it, man. Like again, we're fans of the Cowboys, but I like to read the grades and all that stuff. That I so agree with you, Matt Nagy. They listen. Their first and second rounders should have switched a little bit. Kind of sort of something that happened with the Cowboys too. Seahawks only had three picks though, so you knew they was gonna have a bad draft. But yeah, I see everybody put grades on stuff, but it's hard to grade a draft until they get on the field, man. So what we're gonna do, um, if Quentin, if you will allow me, I would like to use a source tonight.
Yeah.
Um, it's a guy that I love. You know, I love him. So shout out to uh, Lance Zerlin. who's on NFL Network and he's on NFL.com. Just going to use some of his analysis pre-draft for these 11 picks that the Dallas Cowboys made, and some of them have a little bit of player comps in there. And you want to get right into it, or
Absolutely. We could go back to even discussing our quick reaction on Micah Parsons. Um, really, is nothing else to say with Micah Parsons with the pickup. Excellent pickup. A lot of guys have said he's the best defensive player in the draft, and it's kind of funny looking back at it because when me and you discussed Micah Parsons 4 or 5 months ago, we didn't think we would get him. Then we said, nah, we don't need him. Let's focus on cornerback first. And hindsight is always 2020. But if you would have told me before this draft that the Cowboys would have two of the top six linebackers when you're talking about Micah Parsons, Xavier Collins, Nick Bolton, the kid from Kentucky, I would have never, and Jabril Cox, I would have never believed you. I'd have been like, nah, we ain't getting two of them. We probably won't even be able to get one of them.
right?
Me and you had wanted, basically thought we could probably get Nick Bolton, but Micah Parsons, the comp everybody's saying is Devin White. The can all be all safety that the Tampa Bay had that basically a lot of people didn't know how good he was until this playoff run that Tampa Bay had. When you have a safety, when you have a linebacker who can play all over the field, you really don't have to blitz. See, the key to a great
No,
linebacker is having a great line
no,
and
I
keeping
agree.
those guards off the linebackers.
I agree with you. So it was interesting because Lance Zierlein had his player comp as Miles Jack,
Mm.
who's another do it all. But one thing, and we went in detail with Micah Parsons on Friday morning, so we don't really have to do it again. But there was one area scout from the AFC, from an AFC team that had a very interesting quote, and he said, "I play him at will for a 3 weeks out linebacker on early downs, and then send him off the edge in a lot of exotic looks on rush downs." And I think you could do that. I think because the
Yeah.
guy gets after the quarterback.
One
He's
of one of the things that people don't realize is that he's not only subpar 440, he's 6'3", so he has the height where he
six
could do
three.
it.
He's
And he
6'3".
was a defensive lineman when he got recruited to Penn State.
Listen, he's 6'3". He's 244 pounds, and he runs a 4.39 40. And in high school, he was a running back slash defensive end. James Franklin was on NFL Network, and he said had he played in the 2020 season, he was going to put his stud linebacker back deep returning kickoffs. So that tells you the type of athlete he is. That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Um, it's funny, and we talked about it a little bit on Friday. When you're trading within your division, that's very interesting. Um, I think they wanted to keep. I'm gonna be honest. I think it was twofold. They wanted to keep Devontae Smith away from the Giants. They didn't mind him going to the Eagles, which is the Cowboys' brain trust telling you they don't believe Jalen Hurts that good. So you have to be careful when you do that. But they picked up an extra third round pick as well.
I know that Kavanaugh asked Steven today. Did they asked the Eagles what they was gonna pick? I couldn't really hear it. You was telling me over the phone. What did Steven
Basically,
say?
basically, they asked if it was going to be an offensive defensive player. They did do that. He's like, you want to be careful when you make those type of trades because if they'd have went and got a franchise quarterback, then you would have had to deal with him. So you kind of got to trust a little bit. But the extra three wound up being good, man. So you know, top top thing for the Cowboys was a corner. But once those two corners went off the board, I think they got the best defensive player in this draft. So
Now the second round pick, we were on the phone when it happened,
mhm.
and you was like, "I'm gonna let you find out," because you knew how happy I would be. And then
I was
I forced you to tell me,
Yeah.
And when you told me after the Raiders had swooped in and took Trevor Mooring, and I know a lot of people is like, the Cowboys got blocked twice, and I find it interesting that they're saying this, but they got to understand is that positions in the draft, this always happens. Teams always take a player that they know another team is zeroing in on that
Mm.
they could use. I mean, the Raiders do got three decent safeties, and the Cowboys,
Listen,
traditionally the last couple of years haven't had a high quality safety. So I think a lot of people blew that whole thing out of proportion, knowing Dallas still needed a corner.
well, I think it's two things, and this just could be me being a biased Cowboy fan. I think our Cowboy insiders talk too damn much. I think they tweet too damn much, and I really do believe that the Raiders did jump in front of the Cowboys to take Murray because the Cowboys was going to take him. Just like it happened a few years ago when we got jumped by the Eagles and they took Dallas Goddard. It's a blessing and a curse being the most talked about team in the league. You know, it's crazy, but I think Calvin Joseph will keep it to his government name tonight. I think
No,
Calvin,
no, 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 no. The Cowboys picked up my boy Boss Man Fats.
Boss
Um,
Man Fat, and you gotta be careful with Boss Man Fat because he started at LSU and he played a certain amount of games there. Then he went to Kentucky. Then he opted out. So this young man's only played 15 college football games. He's only been on the field 15 times in college football, but his talent is there. It's just, does he love the game? I don't want to say that about any player. They say off the field stuff, but it's not like he has off the
his
field
off the field
depth.
issues is that he's
He's a
20 years
rapper.
old, 20 years old and got six rap albums.
Yeah, he a rapper.
I mean, that's
So
that's the funny part, Dwayne. Now, and I don't mean, excuse me for really I apologize for cutting you off.
no, no,
It's
that's
really
ridiculous.
sad sometimes that I know that these kids are stepping into um the professional ranks of professional football players now, but it's like amazing that they don't allow these kids to be kids and make kid decisions.
Mhm.
They expect these kids to be 30-year-old grown-ups and they're 18, 19, 20 years old. I mean, like you said, his off the field issues have been they don't think the coaches don't think he's focused because he's not eat sleeping talking football and he's making rap albums. But they didn't say that 2 weeks ago when the article came out about Trevor Lawrence.
Right.
It's amazing how a
They
lot of
didn't
the
say
talking heads
they ain't say nothing about Mac Jones's DUI. What's
these
causing
talk
that?
these talking heads, what they'll do is they know how to spin when it comes to certain athletes and know how if they don't like a certain guy or I'll say it what I really think. I think a lot of times the agents be giving them money
Yeah.
and be like, look, talk bad about this particular player. Because it's always amazing how certain things don't come out. Like you said about Weaver. Why did it just come out?
I don't know, but I'm glad the Cowboys ain't draft him, even though I wanted him.
Yeah.
It's funny when I look at Lance Zerlin's player count before the draft on Boss Man Fat. It's now one of his teammates. You know which teammate he has for his player count?
JD?
Marcus Kennedy
Hmm.
is his player count, but he was second, third round because inexperience. Because he got suspended by LSU and Kentucky had some issues there. But man, if you watch his film, he's great hips. He could change his direction, does change his speed well. Um, hey, he locked Devontae Smith down in a head-to-head matchup. Locked him down. They used him as the main person to cover Kyle Pitts. Now Kyle Pitts had a pretty good game on him, but Kyle Pitts had a pretty good game on everybody. But to take your number one corner, excuse me, and have him shadow Kyle Pitts around is something. So I like it. I think you will have two very good aggressive corners to play press man. We'll get into a little bit more of what I think was one of the greatest press conferences I've seen in a while, the Dan Quinn press conference. But going into this draft, I wanted all three levels of our defense addressed. I wanted to double up on corner. I wanted to double up on safety, but they doubled up on linebacker. And I wanted them to double up on the defensive line. So with those 11 picks, they did that. They got 8 defensive picks out of their 11, and they addressed all levels of their defense.
So Dwayne,
I
I want
agree.
you to
Go
I want
big.
you to address I want you to address the third round, and the reason why the third round is because this is the round where the Cowboys had the most picks, and this was the round where, unfortunately, a lot of the talking heads, and this is what I mean with a lot of these guys, is that they regurgitate the same information. Shout out to Jeff Kavanaugh because Jeff Kavanaugh didn't say something about a player until he went and looked at him. A lot of these guys will go to these magazine guys. They'll go to Mel Kiper. They'll go to Todd McShay, and they'll say, or even the great Dan Bugler, who I like a lot, and they'll go to these guys and say, "Oh, we never heard of these guys," or whatever they say their ranking is. That's how they'll choose their players. Now, talk about the third round picks and explain,
Okay.
because Dwayne, I always tell people this, and I once I say it again, I tell you this all the time, is that there is no person that I know that watches more college football than you. You will literally sit there every Saturday and watch at least minimum 5 games if you don't have nothing to do.
Yeah.
And start your weekend basically starts on Thursday when college football comes on, and you'll watch games. You know a lot about me and you actually. I can remember we used to be in school talking about parade all Americans in football
It's been
and
a
so
long
forth. So
time, man. I love it.
yeah, yeah, for 20, 30 years you've been doing it.
But,
Um, so I know that you saw every player that the Cowboys drafted, like literally seen them play at least one game
mhm.
in their college career.
Well,
And
let me say this how I feel about the 2021 draft. Right, COVID was still in effect. Okay, you didn't have scouting combines. Right, you had pro days, but you had multiple pro days because teams couldn't really have kids come to their facility. They had to do Zoom meetings. So, Senior Bowl, Pro Day is all you really had to go off of, and your area scouts. So, Cowboys had 3 third round picks, right? And I want everybody that's a Cowboy fan that may be watching this or people that's just supporting us, Will McClay, not just this year, but every year, unless it's an extreme situation, like CD Lamb falling into your laps at 17 like last year, Will McClay is going to go need over best available player every time. Will McClay believes in drafting players from Power 5 conferences, SEC, Big 10, Big 12, Pac 12, ACC. That's where he goes.
and that's his motto because he believes in the competition aspect.
Exactly. So if you look at it, Micah Parsons, Penn State, Big 10, right? Calvin Joseph, SEC. Osa Adigiwusa. I probably said it wrong. I've been trying to get it right. I'm close. Pac 12. Okay. Chauncey Golston, Big 10. Okay. My man, Nashawn Wright, who I knew who he was the minute they drafted him because I liked the kid. San Diego State. Okay. Our next kid, Stanford. Okay, you got I'm sorry, our next kid was not Stanford,
Jarrell,
LSU, right? Then we went to a kid got a kid from Marshall, but he started his career at Florida State. So you see what I'm saying? And so when you look at Osa, when you look at Marcus Golden, and when you look at the Cowboys' most controversial pick, which was Nashawn Wright, and he was controversial because a lot of people didn't know who he was, right? A lot of quote unquote insiders didn't know who he was. But let's think about it, okay? Osa was at the Senior Bowl. Cowboys had everybody at the Senior Bowl. He knocked the Senior Bowl out of the park. He's 282, former wrestler, long arms, very athletic, brings pressure up the middle. And as Dan Quinn
I'm gonna
said,
ask you a question. Is he a former high school All American wrestler?
he was 91 and 0 in his high school career as a wrestler. Never lost. Okay? Brother made it to the NFL, but had a little bit of issues with a little mental illness issues in the NFL. Played for the Giants, had some issues there. His father had some issues. Actually, his father unfortunately murdered some people, which made the whole family have to move to like Oregon or something to get out of the situation. But anyway, this is a guy the Cowboy Scouts knew, and they worked him out, and they knew him. Okay, um, the kid Chauncey Golson from Iowa, another kid that had a great Senior Bowl. If you have to compare him with somebody, Tyrone Crawford,
I'm
who's
gonna
with
ask you a question, Dwayne, and you know, I'm big on the coach in Iowa. I've been begging him to come back to the NFL since he left. Since he left, I think that I think that a lot of people don't. When you speak about the Power Five conferences, even when I looked at Golson, the first thing I said when I seen he was at Iowa, I just did. He has a professional football coach. Kirk Ferentz is not going to tell when they start doing background on the kid. He's not going to say, "Oh, he could play on the next level," just to say it. I'm quite sure Kirk Ferentz told the Cowboys, like, "Look, he could play on the next level." And he is the Tyrone Crawford. He is the guy that could play the all three positions. Well, at least the two ends in that quote unquote three technique.
Mhm.
Um, I just thought it was interesting because it's like the guys who follow the Cowboys, the guys who we follow, because we like these guys
Yeah,
a
I
lot.
love I love him.
But it just seemed like they sold the fans on players, and then when they were disappointed that the Cowboys didn't get these players, and they got to realize like that's your mock draft. That's not the team's
It's
draft board.
it's two Cowboys YouTubers that have a huge following. Val Lombardi and Jeff Kavanaugh, who's on 105.3. They kept talking about three players in particular. Okay? Darius Washington, the safety from TCU, Marvin Wilson, the defensive tackle from Florida State, and Boss Man Fat, who we got, Calvin Joseph. They put these guys' names in the Cowboy fans' head so much, and Darius Washington and Marvin Wilson didn't even get drafted. So you're killing the Cowboys for not drafting them, but you had to kill the other 31 teams too. And so that's what happens, man. Like, if you look at YouTube, and people get tired of me saying this, but it's the truth, man. The Cowboys are the most liked and the most hated, and they bring eyes. You'll have people from other teams come on Cowboy YouTubers and be like, "Oh, the Cowboys this, the Cowboys that." Man,
Elijah Molden, Matt Nagy, Elijah Molden wouldn't have been a better pick. And
well,
Elijah Molden is one of the guys that Dwayne wanted. And the reason why I'm gonna say he wouldn't have been a better pick is because they're drafting a guy that they're drafting has to have certain qualities. And this
well,
is why Noshawn Wright got picked because he's big and he's
listen,
got long arms.
Nashawn Wright, to finish my thought, it's no surprise that the Cowboys drafted Nashawn Wright. Why? They sent Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. to the Oregon State Pro Day to work them out. Why? Because Dan Quinn, like Chris Richard, like Gus Bradley, all the guys that was in that Pete Carroll coaching staff, like big corners. Okay? They like corners. Nyshawn Wright is legitimately almost 6'5". He's a legit 6'4" and some change. He's a legit 6'5". Now, the Ryan Clarks of the world, all these people wanted to get on this kid because he said he was a more agile, athletic Richard Sherman. Where do you think he got that from? Where do you think he got that from? You
Dan
don't
Quinn them told him
you
that.
don't think he got that from Dan Quinn and Joe Witt? Okay. And was it confidence? Was it nervousness for being on the radio in Dallas for the first time, knowing the following? But all I say to people is before you knock it, put some tape on the young man. Watch his tape. And it makes sense. He's a cover three gem. And that's all they're gonna ask him. He's not gonna be a starter. He's gonna be in the nickel. He's gonna be a cover three. He's gonna be in there in our nickel packages. And if the Cowboys out of this 11 pick get three starters, then they did their job. But the key to those three picks in the third round, the Cowboys went to players that they exclusively scouted. They followed their board. Now their board may have been different than my board, Quentin's board, Val
How many
Lombardi's
how many
board.
boards did you do, Dwayne?
I did 3 mock drafts. I
And
did.
PFF, shout out to Pro Football Focus, said that the Cowboys alone had over 1 million mock draft download boards.
Yeah, man. So you are not inside the Cowboys room. So the one thing that I will give a Jeff Kavanaugh credit for is when he got the emotions of them not picking guys that he thought they should have picked. When he listened to the Dan Quinn press conference, every pick that was made sense. So that was our third round picks, right? Another thing you need to know about Nation Wright pick at 99. NFL insiders, they talk to each other. It goes around. There was about to be a run on corners. So they had to get the corner that they like because after they picked him, Molden went off the board. The big kid, Izzy from Syracuse, went off the board. It was a bunch of people. The Cowboys tried to trade up early in the second round to get Tyson Campbell, but Jacksonville took him first. So they didn't do the trade with the Jets. If Jacksonville didn't take Tyson Campbell at 33, the Cowboys would have traded up to 34 for Tyson Campbell. Didn't work out. Me personally, I think Kelvin Joseph is better than Tyson Campbell. But that's just me. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. They told you that a long time ago.
One of the things, and the reason why I want to bring this up, Dwayne, is because of fit. The last time the Cowboys spent big money on a cornerback, um, they went out. I think it was 2014, and they gave Brandon Carr a lot of money.
Mhm.
Brandon Carr, for anybody that don't know, Brandon Carr didn't miss. He started every game he ever played.
Every game.
Um,
For a while.
cornerback with Kansas City, came to Dallas. He started every game in Dallas. I mean, played in
Every
every game he started.
Dallas. Yes.
Went to Baltimore. They moved him to safety. Then he came back to Dallas. He got cut last year. I bring this up because Brandon Carr was a bump and run man corner. Dallas brought him to Cowboy land, and they took him out of the system. I refer to Chris Carter with this. Chris Carter said years ago, and I will never forget it. He said that the NFL, more players, majority of players in the NFL are system players.
Mhm.
It's not you. He said you can't just take a guy and put him on a team and think he's going to be great in that system. So with the Nashawn Wright thing, I think a lot of people don't understand that he may have been in Oregon State. He may have been under a defensive coordinator that may just use cover three exclusively on passing downs. And he may have excelled in those long passing downs. But then when he was a man corner, he may not have been a good man corner. And maybe the coaches and the scouts seen, oh, when a defensive coordinator calls cover three, this guy's excelling. But he's struggling in man. So this is why a lot of times you'll see players, you'll be like, why this player didn't fit with this team? They're a good
Mhm.
player. it happens that way because of fit scheme. I remember the Cowboys had went to the 4-3 from the 3-4. A lot of them players that was on that 3-4 defense, they couldn't adjust to the 4-3. So go ahead, Dwayne. I mean, yeah, I just
No,
wanted to
no,
talk
but
about that with fit
that's
and
what it is. So when you look at it, it's odd to me, right? And you know I love this guy. It's odd to me that the Cowboys even re-signed Jordan Lewis because when Richard was there and Marinelli was there, it was a situation where he struggled to get on the field because he's small, you know. And so now you got these guys, and they 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 kept him, but he's gonna struggle to get on the field because you got this right kid, you know. Um, when you move to the fourth round, a
I
pick.
think with JD has that specific skill set. We talked about it earlier that maybe they might
You can hear me?
try to, yeah, maybe they might try to move JD and play a little safety here and there. But remember the game a couple years ago when the Cowboys played the Saints where he just shadowed Kamara. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the role for JD, where you just come in on third down and you shadow the scat backs or whatever. I say scat backs. I know there's no such thing as a scat back anymore. I'm just older, and I
Mm-hmm.
remember those third down backs that was just elusive. They was basically small receivers. So I think JD might have a role. I mean, he's definitely going to be a dog in them practices and let everybody
Yeah.
know he ain't going down without a
No, he
fight.
ain't going down without a fight, and don't be surprised if you see him line up as a free safety at times, ball hawk. But then the Cowboys went in the fourth round, and some people are saying it's the best pick that they made of their draft in the fourth round, which is interesting to me. But you and I celebrated like it was 1999 all over again when Jabril Cox got picked at 115. I was screaming and dancing and everything else because this kid has unique coverage skills for a linebacker. He's 6'3", 232, and I said to my man right here, don't be surprised if he becomes a Darren Woodson, somebody that was a linebacker at Arizona State, and when Jimmy Johnson got a hold of him, put him at safety. I think Jabril Cox could play safety.
15 years ago, Jabril Cox was the prototypical safety.
Not
Just
Jabril.
15 years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah, yeah.
He was that size and that body was the prototypical safety. I actually was trying to find out what he ran in his 40 today, and I couldn't find it. I'm Dwayne. He he's got a chance to be super special,
He does.
and the reason why I say that is you very rarely see a guy. He has. I'll just say this: it's a guy that played for the college that I root for that got killed,
Yeah.
and he had and I have never seen. I've only seen two defensive players in my life have a nose for the ball that played safety, and both of them came from Miami.
Yeah.
It was
Every
Ed Reed and
Sean.
Sean Taylor.
Yeah.
And what I see in Jabril Cox is that nose for the ball, like his angles he takes on his interceptions is, and I'm not comparing him to these two guys.
No, you can't. We gotta be
Um,
careful comparing them.
I
Even
just, I
because
just, I really just don't even see more. I see more safety in Jabril Cox than linebacker. It's a
no,
weird thing. I see, he just has a knack for the ball. He's an excellent tackler, excellent in coverage. Could cover any tight end probably except probably Kelsey and Pitts, but we'll see about that. Um, he's Jabril Cox. Cowboys got to steal, and I think the way that the NFL is right now, I'm surprised that he didn't go in the second round at least.
mm-hmm,
I'm literally shocked, but it goes back to teams had situations where they had to get their needs before they can get their wants.
mm-hmm.
Um, But Jabril Cox, he's going to start out on special teams probably, and he is going to light it up.
Well, one of area scout for an AFC team said about Jabril Cox, quiet, humble guy, but he's very confident. I had no problem fitting into a team like LSU after playing at North Dakota State. The kid wanted to prove himself. He was a national champion at North Dakota State. He had nothing more to prove at that level. Came to LSU, became a starter, and became a big time player there. So I'm really excited about him. One thing you could say about Jabril Cox, one thing you could say about Nashawn Wright, one thing you could say about the other big corner from South Carolina. They're going to be special teams demons. Okay, they're going to be very athletic. They're going to help you in special teams, um, and that's what it is. Another controversial pick for the Cowboys. Controversial in round four, their second round four pick was the offensive tackle out of Marshall. There's a lot of guys, a lot of Cowboy insiders and YouTubers that don't want to say his name. I'm gonna say his name. His name is Josh Ball. He's an offensive tackle that started his career at Florida State, had some alleged domestic violence situations with a young lady, multiple counts. I'm not here to judge that. He's not in jail. He was eligible to be drafted. He's a 6'8", almost 6'9" left tackle who you can groom to replace Tyron Smith. You had people like Jeff Kavanaugh. You had people like Downing. You had all these people cursing this young man's name. I'm not going to do that. It's not for me to curse this young man's name. It's for me to talk about him as a football player. And if he didn't have these off the field issues, he would have been a late first, early second round draft pick at offensive tackle. So he will
Well,
be able to help this team.
as a guy who roots for a college team who were once labeled in a big ESPN 30 for 30, the Catholics versus the convicts. I find this very very hypocritical on a lot of people's parts. I mean, we cry and we always talk about we're a country that gives people second chances. Obviously, what this kid did, um, he did. I mean, I don't know the particulars of it. Only him and that young lady know what happened. At the end of the day, he kept his feet looking forward, didn't get in no more trouble, and it got a scholarship and wound up getting himself drafted. And I'm quite sure anybody that knows anything about the NFL do their due diligence once they know something about you in the back your background. So I'm not even gonna even talk about it because we got guys in the Hall of Fame that just some of them were real bad people. Um, some of them were convicted of some serious crimes. So at the end of the day, like we need to be very very careful with saying because a guy did a particular thing, he should no longer be able to work.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of crazy. He has a unique skill and that allows him to be perform on a professional level when it comes to football. So who am I to be saying that he shouldn't be allowed to work? So
And
interesting pick though.
it's like in the pre-draft, a personnel executive from an NFC team said how teams view his issue from Florida State will determine where he goes. But you cannot deny that he's a very talented offensive lineman. So he got a very talented offensive lineman at four. A lot of people tried to say, oh, the Cowboys don't care about character anymore because they got Micah Parsons who had a character issue. They got Kelvin Joseph who has a character issue. They got Josh Ball who has a character issue. But again, nobody said anything about Mac Jones' character with a DUI and an arrest for causing an accident with his DUI. All right. So,
Or Andy Reid's son.
or Andy Reid's son, nobody wants to talk about these things. Josh Bell, 6'7", 308 pounds, with 35-inch arms, and his hands is 10 inches. So once he gets his mitts on you, it's over. All right, so
I think another thing, Dwayne. I think that's interesting that this kid is going to be coached by Joe Philbin. I have to say what I think about last year's team. I think Joe Philbin, out of all the coaches, was the biggest bright spot. What he did with the patchwork line.
mhm,
He had two rookies starting most of the year. One rookie played left tackle. We didn't even hear this guy's name. You didn't even realize that the Hall of Famer wasn't there because even the Hall of Famer gets the occasional hold or the occasional false start.
mhm.
And I think Joe Philbin, once he gets this kid and gets, as they say, gets his hands on him, gets him to get his footwork together, he's so big. Uh, I mean, the kid has a big future. So that's enough with that. Fifth
Yeah.
round.
Hey, listen, I love this pick. And when this pick came up, I told Quentin because I've seen a lot of late night Pac-12 football, and whenever Stanford was on, let me tell you something. When this kid catches that ball at 6'4", 222 pounds, he separates from people because he's a 4'3" guy in the 40. Again, the Cowboys drafted a lot of players who I cannot pronounce their last name. So I'm just going to call him Simi. That's his first name. And he's pretty special, man. It's that speed.
This is what I call Dwayne. The pick the Cowboys got a year early just in case they lose MG13.
Mm-hmm.
This is smart on their part. This is how you scout. This is how you know your roster. Not saying that Cedric Wilson and Noah Brown aren't good guys on the team, but they have a skill set that's unique. But if you know anything about the receivers, is that MG13 is the speed guy,
Well,
and now they got somebody that's faster than
let me
MG13.
explain something to you. This kid averaged 23.6 yards per reception. That's unheard of, folks. 20 he had 24 catches in 12 games for 566 yards. He catches it, he takes it to the house, man.
His yard per catch got to be almost 30.
No, they said it was 23.6.
Wow,
And then,
wow.
last year, 37 receptions for 574. So it came down a little bit, but that was only in 6 games. So kind of like the kid. He's round five. He's a special teams guy. He's that last wide receiver on the roster, like you said, who covers you when something goes on. But again, the Cowboys, a lot of picks, man, 11 picks in this draft. And so we move to the sixth round where they got a player that excites my boy that I'm talking to right now. He finally got his big guy. He finally got his big guy. Big Quentin Bohannon, 6'4", 330, with 34-inch arms and huge mitts of hand. He is your one tech. That's all he's.
Outside of outside of this kid, the kid having a great name, a little spelt a little different, but outside of the kid having a great name, he is what I call the classical fat guy. Um, some scouts even said that his weight might went up to 350. And all I can say about that is, when the Cowboy scouts went down to Kentucky to go see Boss Man Fats, it was probably this one fat guy that kept pushing the line. And this is what happens. A lot of times scouts go get guys, and this is what happened with the seventh round pick as well. They go down there to look at one player and they wind up seeing another player. And I like that Mike McCarthy said to him,
There you
We're
go.
gonna
I
we're
wanted to
gonna get you.
tell that.
We're coming to get you. And Mike McCarthy stuck to his word and they went and got the kid. All I can say is it's funny that he got drafted and he's going to threaten my guy, my other guy on the Cowboys roster, Bully Ball, Antoine Woods. And is it good? Because competition breeds greatness.
Mhm.
So a lot of these guys, a lot of the veterans, we want to tell them they on notice. And this bunch of young brash. young draft picks. They're boisterous,
Hmm.
and Quentin already said ain't nobody running on Dallas no more.
Nope. Boy already said it. And if you don't think he's making this team, you're crazy. Mike McCarthy told him, I'm coming to get you. Dan Quinn laughed a little bit because we drafted guys with line versatility and Osa and Chauncey. They're versatile. They can play inside, they can play outside. So in Dan Quinn's press conference, he was like, "Yeah, Quentin, we'll line him up in the middle, we'll move him around." And he said, "No, we're not moving him. I'm joking. He's gonna be right on top of the center. He's gonna be right on top of the center, and he's gonna be right on top of the center." Um, we're gonna get to that. We got two more picks to go, and then we're gonna open it up around the league, Nagy. So stick with us because I want to know your winners and losers as well. So stick with us. Let us get through these last two players. Another six rounder who some projected to be a fourth rounder. Something very very in common with Nashawn Wright. He's not as tall. He's about 6'3", pushing it at 6'4". Cowboys already said he's going to be a safety. He worked opposite of J.C. Horn at South Carolina. Okay? Another kid Cowboys know well because of their relationship with Will Muschamp, who was this kid's head coach of South Carolina. Dan Quinn and McCarthy both have relationships with Will Muschamp.
Actually, that's Dan Quinn and Will Muschamp is best friends.
Right. So, once again, here comes this kid who athletic. He's had 12 interceptions in his career in South Carolina. He had one game against Georgia where he had three interceptions in one game. Ball hawk. He's going to be a free safety back there. Think legend of. I'm not saying these guys are LOD. I'm not saying that. But if you remember LOD when you had Bronner and you had Richard Sherman and you had Cam Chancellor, these were big guys. The only guy that wasn't big was Earl. But the other four guys were big guys. This is Dan Quinn football. And for all these people that be like, oh, Dan Quinn ran this draft. We need a defense. We rolled out the worst defense in the league and statistically historically bad defense last year. So this draft was supposed to be about defense. And why would you not draft people that fits your scheme? You got to
That's
draft
what I
that
that's
fit.
what I didn't understand about his one guy that says he's a Cowboy fan that's on TV. I don't even want to give him any credence with even saying his name.
That
I'm not a fan of him. He's nothing but a liar.
that's it.
Um, a lot of people don't realize Dan Quinn may have, believe it or not, it may sound crazy, but Dan Quinn, as a defensive coordinator for the Cowboys, may have more control over this draft than he had in Atlanta as the head coach. A lot of coaches are not empowered in the NFL. A lot of GMs will use their board and they won't ask the coaches for nothing, and they'll just try to fit the players that they think the coach needs. Like Dwayne said earlier, a lot of the Cowboys relied on their board, their scouts, and they really what they did when they were able to go see some of these players, they split their coaching staff up.
Yes, they did.
They would have Steven and Will McClay go see some guys, Dan Quinn and Vitt go see some guys, McCarthy, Kellen Moore go see some guys. And even though McCarthy was there, as you see, he was at Kentucky, and they got two defensive guys. With Quentin, and just to go back to that, is that anybody that knows anything about McCarthy is that McCarthy had a big nose tackle from Boston College from New Jersey named B.J. Raji.
Mm-hmm.
And B.J. Raji was a terror in the middle. And he was so good, he was on the field at third down as a defensive end sometimes.
Crazy.
So just know that you know, nobody knows how these players are gonna fan out, but they know what they're doing.
Right. Right. And the last guy that we drafted, a big offensive interior offensive lineman. From Nebraska again, another big school. That's all we do, big schools. Okay, the littlest school we drafted somebody out of was Marshall, and that kid started at FSU. So you got Matt Finoki. He's probably going to be a practice squad type kid. Can play guard, can play center. Again, he comes from the Big Ten. So again, Will McCray did what he always does. You know, he drafts players from Power Fives, and he drafts players that fit the scheme. Has he reached for some players in the past? He reached for Tristan Hill, yes. He reached for Taco Charlton, yes. Those were people that Rob Marinelli wanted at the time. And so now he's doing the same thing. If you want to say the Nation Wright pick is a reach, maybe I'm too personal to the kid. I watched Last Chance U, which his brother was a star of that season. So they talked to him a little bit and how these kids lost their father when they were young. Nashon Wright has a portrait of his father on his calf muscle. So that's something that you may see when he ain't wearing long socks. He's an athlete, man. He's skinny. He's skinny. He gotta get his legs a little more
How do
defined.
you? I'm gonna ask you just for the sake of it. How do you remember No Sean Wright, Dwayne?
From Last Chance U, seeing the feature on his brother Rajon. Um, Nishon was not recruited heavily out of California. So he went to Laney College, which was a junior college. Excuse me. Did 1 year at Laney College, and then Oregon State went and got him, man. So again, he has great ball skills, and surprisingly, even at 6'5", he likes to press and he likes to bully wide receivers. He puts his hands on these young. There's no receiver that's going to be bigger than him, except for DJ Metcalf.
Oh, Matt Nagy, for you to be a Chicago fan, you know some stuff about the Cowboys, huh? Because a lot of people don't know who George Edwards is.
Yeah, he does. He does. So overall, I think the Cowboys did what they needed to do. Um, I like Micah Parsons. I like Kelvin Joseph. I'm a Nyshawn Wright fan, so I liked him. And Jabril Cox excites me. And the two D linemen, man, they fit the need. They fit the need. So defense, defense, defense. And I love that people still don't think we're gonna win the NFC East. That's fine. But I like what we did, you know. Um, when I look around, I think nobody drafts better than the Baltimore Ravens. And I think once again, the Baltimore Ravens showed who they are when it comes to this drafting game. Okay. Another team that I want to talk about is those Chicago Bears. I thought coming up to get Justin Fields was great. I love Tevin Jenkins. I think he is one of the steals of the draft that they was able to get that young man in the second round. Now, the team I'm giving the most credit to is the team I gave the most credit to last year on draft day. And the team that I'm telling y'all once again, y'all better watch out for them, man. It's
My,
the Miami Dolphins. You better watch out for
Miami.
Chris Chris Greer and Brian Flores is doing the damn thing in Miami. Trying to tell y'all, man. Y'all better watch out for Miami, man.
The, the, it's funny because when you look at the Dolphins and I don't care who the quarterback is right now, but we know who Tua is. What they've done in two off seasons, I don't think no rookie quarterback would have been able to catch up, and their maturation process would have been quick enough compared to what they turned over the team. And what I mean by that is the problem with Tua is Tua don't have enough games on this belt, but that team is ready to win. They
Now, this,
are they are ready to punch you in the mouth and challenge you because that defense that they should have put on that field next year should be top seven easily,
Well, listen.
easily.
Here's what I'll tell you guys about the Miami Dolphins and their draft picks. They had 7 draft picks, right? The Dolphins, 7. 5 of their first was in the top 100. Damn top 100, basically top 80. They had 81. They had pick 6, 18, 36, 42, and 81. And boy, did they do something with it. They got a number 1 wide receiver in Jalen Waddle. They got an edge rusher out of Miami, Jalen Phillips, who I love, who is going to be a problem. They lost Calvin Van Noy, right? Okay,
Yeah.
we lost him. We got Jalen Phillips to replace him, right? They got one of my favorite safeties in this draft, ball hawking Javon Holland. Notre Dame just keeps churning out offensive linemen for this league. They got their offensive tackle. And then I want you guys to remember this name. Please. Hunter Long, the tight end from Boston College. You're putting him with Gasicki. Man, Tua has no excuses. He's
No
healthy.
excuses.
He's healthy. He got to come back. He got weapons. There's no excuses. Miami Dolphins. Listen, everybody thinks it's for a uh, foregone conclusion that Buffalo is going to win the AFC East. Not I. I like the Dolphins. I like them a lot.
I see Coach Nagy mentioned the Browns. Be careful with the Browns. The Browns are going to have a major turnover on their defense, and their defensive coordinator is going to have his work cut out because they're going to have a lot of new starters. A lot of them guys got egos, so it's going to be interesting getting 2 guys. You're going to have the Rams safeties there, who basically those guys have won. They haven't won a Super Bowl, but they played on a high level, both of them. You're going to have Jadavian Clowney, who's basically been his. The only thing we can always say about Jadavian Clowney is talent,
Mhm.
expectation. He has never fanned out to what we thought he was going to be. Miles Garrett is probably the best defensive end in football. And then you got to worry about them linebackers. They got a very interesting thing what they're doing. I like the Browns and what their offseason has been an A. The
Yeah,
Vikings,
Minnesota drafted 3 players that I personally love. Okay, Kellerman, I love him. I've been telling Quentin, probably driving him crazy for the past 4 months. I love Chaz Surratt. Quentin will tell you, I want him to be a Cowboy, but I think Jabril Cox fits a little bit better what the Cowboys is doing. But even if it wasn't for that, the Cowboys couldn't get Surratt anyway because he went at like 78. So I like him. I think Kellerman is a nice transition quarterback once you're done with number 8 up there, Kirk Cousins. Darashaw, I love that big guy.
but
So
one thing, Coach Nagy, that Dwayne didn't say about the Vikings, we love the coach. So in our eyes, the coach can't do nothing wrong. We kind of root for the coach, Mike Zimmer. He's truly been a great coach that's underrated. Just haven't won the big game. So anything that he does, and we followed him all off season by going to get the big fella when he went and got a telefair. Like we can't say nothing.
nah, I love the
We
guy.
we love Zimmer.
I'm not even gonna hide the fact that I love him.
There you
Um,
go, Dwayne. He said, "Do you still like Matt Rule for passing up on Fields?"
no, I don't. But what it tells me is Matt Rule believes in Sam Darnold, and he's building some things around Sam Darnold. I'm a Sam Darnold fan, man. I think the Jets gave up on Sam Darnold too quick. Um, I like Sam Darnold with Matt Rule and what Matt Rule's gonna do. Watch out. You heard it here first. Watch out for Herbert down there in Carolina. You putting Chuba with Christian McCaffrey. Chuba's the real deal, man. You gonna hear from him this year in that
And they got
Panthers.
don't they still got DJ Chark and
They got they
uh
got they got Robbie Anderson.
yeah.
Listen, they got some players, man. They got some players, and they're building that defense. And anybody that knows me, even my man Matt Nagy here, know that I'm a big Matt Rule fan. Um, let's talk about the quarterbacks. So you had 5 go in the first round. You had 8 go overall, like early.
So according
Not
to
all,
averages, 3.5 of those five quarterbacks are going to be busts.
they're not all gonna hit. Um, I like what the Jets did. I like the Jets draft. I think the Jets are gonna have the best left side of the offensive line for a decade. When you put Makai Becton and Elijah Vera Tucker next to each other on the left side, on Zachary Wilson's blind side, I think Zach Wilson has the biggest potential to be a bust. I just don't know. I think people got sold on him throwing the ball at pro day in t-shirt and shorts. He has a very bust potential to me. Um, yeah,
Hold on.
Phil stock dropped, but he wound up in a really good place, man. What is so funny, and I hate to say this, but it's still true to this day. When they talk about the black quarterback, they just want to talk about how athletic he is, right? But all these experts, the Adam Schefflers, the Dan Orlovskis, all these guys just automatically assume that Kyle Shanahan did what he did to come up and get Mac Jones. But you would be a fool to give up what they gave up to come up to get Mac Jones. Because as it showed in this draft, he would have been there at 12 anyway. And what I found funny was listening to Kyle Shanahan on the press conference saying he laughed when they made the trade and everybody assumed that he was going to get Mac Jones. And he knew he was trading up to get Trey Lance the whole time. So he just let that narrative go out there. But those guys, like the Ryan Clarks, like the Swagoos, like some of the other guys, Bucky Brooks, those pure football guys that know football talent, knew it wasn't Mac Jones the whole time.
I'm gonna ask you a question, Dwayne, and I
And Mac Jones is going to be a bust in New
do
England.
you think
Trust
do you think and I see what Coach Nagy is saying.
me. He
Do you
is.
think do you think that Trey Lance was a lot to give up three number ones for?
I
Or
saw
that just was the price of doing business?
I saw Trey Lance at North Dakota State, and I said to myself, these college evaluators ought to be ashamed of themselves because all this kid ever wanted to do was be a quarterback, and they tried to change him to be a safety. Okay, I'm glad he stuck to his guns. I'm glad when I saw this kid at North Dakota State, and he went a whole season up there and threw less than 5 interceptions, and how big and athletic he is. Let me tell you something.
You have a
You
comp for him?
you remember how Cap used to run around, and people would be like, "Oh my God, look at this big quarterback for San Francisco." And when he gets out the pocket, when this kid get out the pocket, watch out, okay? But when he's in the pocket, the kid got a cannon, man. This kid got a Dante Culpepper cannon, okay? He reads his progressions well. So then people want to say stuff about his competition and who did he play against. Well, who the hell did Zach Wilson play against?
Hmm.
Go back and look at Zach Wilson this year and look at some of the terrible teams he played against. Okay?
So if the
So
Jets would have picked Trey
to
Lance, it
me,
would have threw a wrench in San Francisco's game.
it would have. To me, and I said this before the draft, and I said this leading up, when it's all said and done, when it's all said and done, and we look at these 5 first round quarterbacks, Trey Lance is going to be the best quarterback from this draft class.
Hmm.
I think Mac Jones and Zach Wilson are going to be the ones that we look back on and be like, man, they went in the first round.
Wow. Wow. Any any final thoughts, Wayne?
Um, when I think about it, I think Denver. I don't understand what they're doing.
You
I
think
know
they should go after Aaron Rodgers? That's been the
they
talk.
better. They better.
I think if they go after him right now, I think they got the talent
Yeah,
that
they're
he
gonna.
would he would he would get them right in the playoffs. Where they got talent there.
Yeah, but they're gonna
Um,
have to give up. They're gonna have to give up somebody like Jerry Judy. They're gonna have to give up a Bradley Chubb. He ain't coming cheap. Okay. Um. And let me. And I'm glad you mentioned Aaron Rodgers. Let me say this: people are basing the fact that they feel that Green Bay disrespected Aaron Rodgers because they drafted Jordan Love last year. Well, didn't they draft Aaron Rodgers when Brett Favre was still a starting quarterback of Green Bay and they used the first round draft pick on him? Okay. Isn't Devontae Adams one of the best wide receivers in the league? Didn't Green Bay build possibly the best offensive line in the NFL? Doesn't Green Bay have a three-headed monster at running back, starting with Aaron Jones, who they just re-signed, and they got the big kid Dylan? Okay,
I
man,
um
haven't they improved their defense?
I think I
Come on,
think it's a
man.
Dwayne. I kind of agree with you, and I'm so far different from what them guys on them letter networks say because the letter networks are treating Aaron Rodgers like he don't do nothing wrong. The guy doesn't. It's not like he's around that organization ever. Then all of a sudden, the last couple of years since he signed this massive contract, one thing about these players, and even if the players are not that astute when it comes to understanding their salary cap, their agents know what be
Mhm.
coming on. They talk and they share information. Aaron Rodgers knows what Green Bay's working with. They went and got the two Smith brothers, quote unquote. They're not brothers, but they known as the Smith
Yeah,
brothers.
yeah,
The problem with Aaron Rodgers is that he spit the bit the last two games, the last two championships. Let's be honest. Let's be real. He choked.
yeah,
Definitely last year. He choked. He had
yeah.
a great year. He was the MVP of the league, and he got to the last game. And in that goal line, he passed the ball when he should have ran. And he choked. He just didn't come up big. And the problem with the talking heads is that they don't never want to admit. They love to talk about, oh, Brady's this, Brady. But you know one thing about Tom Brady? If he would have lost, he would have lost. If he would have won, he would have won. Aaron Rodgers, they don't want to criticize because they want to be the guy who don't want to criticize the most talented quarterback we ever seen.
Mhm.
Aaron Rodgers choked. The last two
But
championship games, he choked. And let's
listen,
go back to people don't realize it. When the 49ers went to the Super Bowl, I'm not trying to be funny. People better remember Jimmy G only threw 8 passes. They couldn't stop the run. He threw 8 passes and got to the championship game, got to the
yeah,
Super Bowl.
yeah. So, but as far as the Cowboys is concerned, um, yeah, man, this is a man that don't even talk to his family. Like he don't like. There's certain things going on with this guy. Um,
Oh, it was Mike McCarthy was the problem 3 years ago.
yeah, it's always somebody else, man. It's always somebody else. But once again, man, kudos to the NFL, man. When you think about for 3 days, they had primetime coverage on ABC, ESPN, and the NFL Network. ABC did the entire draft on Sunday from 12 o'clock to 7. ABC, man. That's major when you think about it. But we got to do something about these first rounds lasting almost 5 hours, man. Listen, we stayed up the whole time. If you need to see a replay of our draft reaction show, we did 4.5 hours, man. Um, if you're watching this, man, I'm so happy. I know, you know, Matt Nagy, thank you for just rocking with us, man. Like we appreciate you. And man, Justin Fields, I knew you had to be happy. We also got a young man, Patrick Seals, that we deal with from time to time, and I could tell how happy he is what the Bears did. And so you just build on it, man. NFL is the best game in the world. Football is the best game in the world. We got May 12th coming up with the schedule show. I think what me and Quentin will wind up doing is sort of like we did in the lead up to the draft. We will go over the off seasons by division. And again, we'll start out west and we'll end with the division that we love, the NFC East. And we'll just talk about the off season, free agency and the draft, and how we see it for each division, starting with the NFC West and the AFC West. Maybe we'll do both. I think we'll have time to do it that way. We'll do AFC West, NFC West. Then we'll do the North AFC, NFC, the South AFC, NFC, and then we'll wrap it up in the East Coast. So that's four shows that you can look forward to where we're gonna just break down the off season. And once again, I'm thankful to be on this platform. Cowboy fans, hope you're happy. I know my man Matt Nagy is very happy with what the Bears did. And as always, man, we thank you for your time. Please like, subscribe, and share. Grow it. Grow the network, grow the platform. And feel free to just hit us with the chats, man. Talk
With,
to us.
with that, you guys have a blessed week.